Aaron, how soon into your research did you settle upon the narrative structure, the three distinct parts and launches?
I settled on the structure maybe a few months into the research. I was looking for a way to not do a biopic, not have the traditional cradle-to-grave structure with the greatest hits in the middle. I was trained and brought up as a playwright, so I like claustrophobic spaces. I like compressed periods of time with a ticking clock. And so I got this idea to also, I was meeting with a lot of the people. Some of them are represented in the movie, some of them aren't, but a lot of people who were close to Steve. And I was able to identify 5 points of human friction in his life. And I thought, why not? This won't be an origin story movie. This won't be an invention movie. We're not going to see him invent the Mac, invent the iPhone, invent the iPod, invent the iPad. It's going to be about this friction in his life. Let's try playing it out in real time. Real time is 30 minutes for you in the audience. It's the same as 30 minutes for a character on the screen. Backstage, in the minutes before one of his big product launches. Let's do it like a 3-act play. And I got support from the studio, who I think they assumed they were getting, that they had hired me to write a biopic about Steve Jobs, that they were going to get it. They weren't. I got support from Scott Rudin, and of course it took a visual master like Danny Boyle to make a movie that's built entirely out of dialogue visually interesting. It also took an ensemble of great actors to handle that material.
And how important, Aaron, is it for the motion that the characters have throughout the film in a very dialogue-rich film? We can't have them just sort of stationary.
No, the motion was very important during the movie. In fact, a scene, I would write a 10-page scene that took place in a dressing room, and Danny would find ways to move them around so that we weren't just staring at these 4 walls for a time. Or he wouldn't move them, but he would cut back to the audience as they were coming in. He would cut to Lisa and her mother, Chrisanne, waiting out there. He would cut to Andy Hertzfeld desperately working on the computer trying to get it to say hello. Danny provided the real visual interest in the movie.
Did you have any concerns at the outset, Aaron, just about, well, even at starting the project, people have such strong opinions about Steve, and there's such a lot of conflicting opinions?
Yes. Writing about Steve Jobs is a little like writing about the Beatles. There are people out there who feel some ownership over Steve Jobs. And that was something I didn't discover until I started doing the project, that if you go online, there are fan sites for the Mac, for instance. Just the Macintosh has its own fan sites. And there are, you can start a fist fight between, an Apple person and a Samsung person. And everyone, of course, assumed that this movie was going to be a movie about how great Steve Jobs was. It was that it was going to glorify Steve Jobs. So you'd read a lot of comments of, I can't believe they're making another movie. Why does this guy deserve a movie? He was just this nasty person who stole other people's ideas. And I kept wanting to kind of climb into my computer and say, just wait. It's not, we're not giving him an Olympic medal in this movie. You're going to see him do that. So people are going to bring their own idea of Steve Jobs to the movie, and if the movie doesn't match their idea, either their minds will be changed or they won't like the movie.
The humour in the film is fantastic. And I know you're writing fiction, not journalism, but how true to the man was the humour that you wrote?
That's a very good question. Again, Steve Jobs is the only character in the movie I didn't meet because he had passed away by the time I started writing. But I got the sense that he had a sense of humor, that he was a funny guy. And even if he wasn't, my version of him was going to be, because you needed that spoonful of sugar to help the medicine go down. If he wasn't funny, he was going to be unbearable.
Would you mind telling me that you obviously conducted a whole host of interviews, as you just referenced, as well as reading Walter's book, and perhaps tell me which were the most difficult to get, to execute, to actually sort of pin down, if any?
I was surprised at how willing everyone was to speak. There wasn't an interview that was difficult to get. I remember there was even one person, I won't say who it was, because it truly doesn't matter, but most of the interviews were either conducted in my office in Los Angeles or a hotel room in Silicon Valley in Northern California. And someone came to Silicon Valley, to San Francisco, came into the hotel room. They were offered coffee and whatever they wanted. And as soon as it was time to start, they said, "I'm not talking about Steve Jobs at all." And I said, "Whoa, I don't know what else to talk about with you. That's why you're here." Now, they ultimately talked about Steve Jobs, but they showed up just to tell me that they're not going to talk about Steve Jobs. Everyone else was very easy to talk to, from Woz to Lisa, there were some very colorful characters that aren't in the movie. Lee Clow, who was the ad man, who really did all the marketing campaigns that we've grown to know and love from 1984 to Think Different. It was a pleasure talking to these people.
It's a great cast, but we have to kind of focus on Michael here. Yeah, would you mind telling me the delight it was to have him deliver your dialogue?
It's an indescribable delight. I imagine it's the same as when a composer writes a piece of music and one of the world's best piano players or a violinist sits down and plays it. It was wonderful. He had a heavy burden on his shoulders. It's a gigantic role as written, and you never saw the pressure get to him. And he has a natural charm to go with his world-class acting ability, and bringing that charm to the part was very important.
To quote Wikipedia, of all sources, Aaron Sorkin's trademark rapid-fire dialogue. I wonder, when you hear that kind of thing, do you feel insulted that it's kind of reductive, or do you just sort of accept the fact that people like to?
I'm not insulted by it, certainly. It's become a kind of easy go-to thing, but I'm not insulted by it. I'm much more concerned with the experience that you're having for that 2 hours that I've asked for your attention in the theater than I am with what's happening on Wikipedia. Right?